Table luncheon. We had a delightful appetizer from Endeavour and a hefty main course from Richard. I can only hope to give you a delightful dessert. My background is as an exploration geologist in the mining business. I've been in mining since 1976. I'm a specialist in gold and silver since 1980. And we've had a very exciting week in Endeavour. On Saturday of this past week, we signed a contract to purchase our third mine. It's another mine in Mexico, a silver and gold mine. The purchase price is $250 million, and Endeavour is in a fortunate position to be able to pay cash for this acquisition. So there's little need to issue shares. It is a very accretive transaction for our company. On Sunday, Hugh and I flew to New York, and we started marketing this new acquisition on Monday. And we're very privileged to ring the opening bell on the New York Stock Exchange this past Tuesday. We then took the red-eye flight to Zurich for the annual Gold and Silver Conference in Zurich these last 3 days. And at the end of our week is a delightful morning here in Vienna. So a wonderful week for Endeavour. Let me back up. Endeavour Silver is a company that I founded in 2003. At that time, the price of silver was clearly, or the price of gold was clearly moving into a bull market, and the price of silver was not. And having been through the cycle in the 70s and early 80s, I recognized that because silver typically goes wherever gold goes, it was a very good time to get into the silver business. So in 2003, we were basically two people, myself and my president, Guthrie Walton. We had a 10-cent stock, about $300,000 of our own money, and an idea to go to Mexico and acquire strategic silver and gold assets before the price of silver took off. Fast forward to today, 2012, and we have a company listed on 3 exchanges. We have now more than 2,000 employees, 3 operating gold and silver mines, forecast production this year of 5 million ounces, and in the next 2 years, close to 9.5 million ounces of silver equivalents. We have been one of the fastest growing silver mining companies in all of North America these last 8 years, and we're not half done yet. We are highly motivated to deliver growth to our stockholders. We have a great track record for growth, and we have a fantastic forecast for growth. So my presentation today is to give you a little taste for the history of Endeavour and for the outlook of Endeavour, a little bit on the mines, and where we think we're headed on behalf of our shareholders. So Endeavour Silver Corp is a growth company in the silver mining business. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about our new acquisition, but first let's do a recap of the company. Starting on page 3. As I mentioned, we are a fast-growing mining company in the silver business. We have 2 high-grade underground silver gold mines in Mexico called Guanaceví and Guanajuato. On Sunday night, we announced the acquisition of a 3rd mine called El Cubo. El Cubo is very interestingly very close to the Guanajuato mine. They're 2 parts of the same district. We are also an integrated mining company, so we do have a portfolio of exploration properties in the hopes of discovering mine number 4 and mine number 5. And very simply, our goal now, that we're the newest mid-tier producer, defined by 5 to 10 million ounces of silver production per year, our goal now is to move out of the mid-tier as quickly as possible and join the ranks of the senior producers at 10 million ounces per year. Page 4, I'm just touching on a few of the investor highlights. I have mentioned our spectacular growth and this year's growth forecast. All 3 mines will grow this year. At Guanaceví, we forecast 20% growth in production this year through simply optimizing the existing plant. At Guanajuato, we have a spectacular 60% expansion underway, in the mines simply to fill the plant to its existing capacity. And last but not least, this brand new acquisition of the El Cubo mine represents to us a very large opportunity for future growth. Like all of these companies, we have an experienced management team, quality assets, good liquidity on the 3 exchanges. I think you'll find that on the New York Stock Exchange, Endeavour trades almost 2 million shares every day. And so trading 2 million shares every day means that we turn over our entire issued share capital every 2 months. We're also very strong financially. At the end of the first quarter, Endeavour had $170 million of working capital, most of which is cash. And our current free cash flow is about $20 million each quarter. With the new mine, that will obviously increase. So, page 5 is a snapshot of our share capital. As I mentioned, listed on 3 exchanges, approximately 88 million shares issued, trading just below $9 per share. Our high was 13, so actually we've come significantly down from our high, and it's a very interesting time to own the shares. Good liquidity, and one strategic shareholder, the largest primary silver mining company in the world, Fresnillo PLC, is a 3% shareholder of Endeavour. Page 6, when you grow a company as fast as we have grown Endeavour, every year is a record year. So I just want to highlight on page 6 our record performance last year and in the first quarter of this year. Our revenues last year reached $128 million, and our outlook for this year is more than $200 million. Operating cash flow last year was $64 million, and our outlook this year is $100 million. Our adjusted net earnings last year, $32 million, and we're forecasting more than $50 million in earnings this year. Our production costs to produce an ounce of silver are approximately $5 per ounce. Now remember, even today, after the silver prices has corrected from last year's high, it's still $32 an ounce. So our gross profit margin today is $27 an ounce. Spectacular business to be in at this time. Our first quarter shows that we are already on track to meet or beat this year's production guidance, with almost 1.1 million ounces of silver production, 6,000 ounces of gold production, and with a realized price in the first quarter of $33 an ounce. Our guidance for the year, before the acquisition of El Cubo, is 4.3 million ounces of silver, approximately 26,000 ounces of gold, and at a production cost in the mid $5 range. Now, post El Cubo, we haven't provided yet any formal guidance, so all I can do is give you some informal guidance. However, we are expecting the production to come in around 5 million ounces this year, 6 million ounces next year, and 7 million ounces the year after. Because we have a large and growing gold production as well, which we call a gold credit, this year's production will be about 35,000 ounces, next year about 45,000 ounces, and the year after about 55,000 ounces. If we were to equate that gold production as a silver equivalent, then Endeavour's production in 2014 should come in around 9.5 million equivalent ounces. So we are very much a pure growth company in the silver mining business. Before I go to page 7, let's move forward. Let's have a look at our track record. So I'm going to skip forward to page 30. Lots of companies say they're in the growth business. This is what growth looks like. We've grown our production from 0 in 2003. We've grown our business every year. And the growth from last year to this year is almost 30%. In the same way, we grow our reserves and resources every year. And this actually has to do with our business model. I'll come to that in a second. But from 0 reserves and 0 resources in 2003, we've grown our business every year. On the financial side, clearly, we've enjoyed strong and rising revenues thanks to the silver price. And the point I want to make on this chart, page 32, is that for many years we used the cash flow to build the business, to grow the business. And so we never had free cash flow to, for instance, issue dividends or build a pile of cash. But as you can see on this chart, for the last 3 years now, we've had some, significant and growing free cash flow. And that's how Endeavour was able to build a treasury of $170 million in the last 3 years. Because of that large treasury, it put us in a position to purchase our third mine, El Cubo, for cash. And the last chart I'll show you, page 33, is my favorite chart. It is simply a comparison of silver revenues in the line, our cash costs of production in the maroon color, and in the gray color is our gross profit margin. Because we're the only silver mining company to drive our cash cost of production down every year for 4 consecutive years, our profit margins have grown faster than any other silver mining company in the last 4 years. And last year our margin, our average margin, was $30 an ounce. So that's what a growth company looks like. Let's go back now. Page 7. I would like to introduce you to our core assets. I don't intend to go through the details, but suffice to say that we now have 3 silver and gold mines in Mexico. Our first and largest mine is the Guanaceví mine in northwestern Durango state. Our second and fastest growing mine is the Guanajuato mine in central Mexico, Guanajuato state. And our latest acquisition, very exciting news this week, was the acquisition of the El Cubo mine, also located in the Guanajuato district. El Cubo, very simply, we call it a bolt-on because with our existing personnel and operations in the district of Guanajuato, it is a very simple opportunity for us to take on the management of a second mine in the same district. We also have many exploration properties, but I'm not going to talk about those. I told you earlier I'd like to come back to our business model because this business model has not only been spectacularly successful for Endeavour, it has been successfully copied by many other companies in the silver business. When we went to Mexico in 2003, looking for strategic silver and gold projects, we were thinking like exploration geologists. All we wanted was a nice patch of ground that had some good prospects, and we could bring the drills and maybe find some silver and some gold. That honestly was the idea. And for the first 6 months of 2003, Godfrey and I went up into the Sierra Madre Mountains on 12-hour mule rides, looking at tiny little godforsaken Spanish holes in the ground. And the Spaniards, believe me, the Spaniards were everywhere. There's 1 million Spanish prospects in Mexico. And after 6 months, we realized that this was no way to build a company. And so we came back down into the mountains and we redid our business plan, and we started looking in the known districts to see if there was any silver remaining in the historic districts of Mexico. Much to our delight, virtually every district we visited had fantastic exploration potential. So let's reflect on that for a second. How can that be? How can a 450-year-old mining district have good exploration potential? Well, when we did our homework, what we recognized is that in approximately 1944, I think, Lennox, was when the restriction on foreign ownership of mines in Mexico came in, and foreigners were only allowed 49% ownership. It was a kind of privatization or a public nationalization of the mining industry in Mexico. They didn't actually take it all away, they took half away. Well, because of that consequence, from 1944 until 1992, when Mexico joined NAFTA, in fact, as a condition of joining NAFTA, it was required that Mexico change the law to allow for 100% foreign ownership in mines in Mexico. So let's think about that. This approximately 50-year period from 1944 to 1992, this was the economic boom period of the Western world. There was also the technological boom period of the exploration and mining business. And so, recognizing that, when we visit famous districts like Guanaceví and Guanajuato, we can go into these old districts and there's old mines everywhere, but there's not a single geochemical survey, and there's not a single geophysical survey, and then you can count the number of drill holes on your hands. That's the opportunity that we're talking about. In Canada, you go into an old district, we talk about exploring in the shadow of a head frame. You know, each shaft has a head frame. And even today in Canada, old districts are being explored now at deeper and deeper levels. All the easy metal, all the easy gold and silver has been found on the surface, and so you need to use geoscience to look beneath the surface. Well, here in Mexico, there's never been any geoscience to any meaningful extent. And so when Endeavour got involved in Guanaceví and Guanajuato, all we did was bring modern geoscience to an old district to find new ore bodies. That's why my business model is acquiring underexplored mines in historic silver districts that are fully built, permitted, and staffed, but about to close. In the case of the mines that we acquired, they were about to close because the Mexican owners thought they had run out of ore. And they thought they had run out of ore because they'd never invested the money and never used the geoscience to look for new ore. And that was their challenge, and that was our opportunity. What we do is bring the money and the expertise needed to rapidly explore these prospective districts, make new discoveries that are blind to surface, they're buried underneath the surface. That allows us to consolidate our land holdings in these districts, and slowly but surely, year after year after year, we grow our business. Every year we buy new land. Every year we do new exploration. Every year we make new discoveries. Every year we increase our reserves and resources. And what that allows us to do is increase our production every year. Like I said, I don't think we're half done yet. So, the rest of my talk today is really just to introduce our new acquisition. We have a new acquisition as of Sunday called El Cubo, and we're buying it from a larger gold company. And because El Cubo is a smaller silver mine, it was considered to be a non-core asset for Orico, and we negotiated a purchase price last week. They're very happy to have our cash, and we're very happy to have their money. So, page 9, El Cubo, a great fit for Guanajuato, for Endeavour in Guanajuato. Again, the map, I think, tells the whole story. The map shows the district of Guanajuato, and in the red are the Endeavour properties at the Guanajuato mine. In the blue are the properties of El Cubo that Endeavour is purchasing, and you can see it's a great fit. We now have a stranglehold on the district, thanks to this one transaction. There are some other synergies in this deal that aren't quite so obvious. We have, for instance, an operational team at Guanajuato. For argument's sake, our company before the transaction has approximately 900 employees. Those 900 employees are on track to produce 4.3 million ounces of silver this year. That's about, what, 5,000 ounces per employee or something like that. El Cubo also has 900 employees, but they're only on track to produce 800,000 ounces this year. That's a challenge. One might say, wow, what is Endeavour doing? They're buying an expensive mine, they have way too many employees, how can they make money? Well, that's the opportunity. Our employees are far more productive than El Cubo's employees. And simply through an exercise of retraining the El Cubo employees over the next 12 months, we think we can bring their level of productivity up to ours. That's why we're so enthusiastic about the opportunity to increase the production at El Cubo. Certainly double, possibly triple over the next 18 to 24 months. Another hidden synergy. We have an exploration team in Guanajuato who started in 2007 with no reserves and no resources. We are now just coming off our 5th major discovery in 5 years using modern geoscience over at our Guanajuato properties. This same exploration team can now cross the street to El Cubo and apply the same geoscience at El Cubo that led to all of our discoveries at Guanajuato. So again, a pretty interesting synergy. We feel the potential for new discoveries at El Cubo is very high, equal to Guanajuato. And the last and not obvious synergy, but I will explain. At Guanajuato, we produce a gold-silver concentrate. And we have some choices with that concentrate. We can sell it to a smelter, but then they'll charge us all sorts of fees and costs and penalties, and they don't pay us for all the gold and silver. They only pay us for 90–95%. So years ago, we decided that we would ship our concentrates up to our other mine at Guanaceví. That's 1,000 kilometers away. Well, why would we do that? Because at Guanaceví, the plant is actually a leach plant. In other words, we can put the concentrates into the leach plant and recover gold and silver as doré bars. So the product of both mines, Guanaceví and Guanajuato, comes out of the Guanaceví plant. And the product is doré bars. Today we're producing almost half a ton of silver a day from the plant, and that constitutes about 18 30-kilogram bars. So 30-kilogram bar is that big. Too difficult to steal. Because El Cubo also has a leach plant, and it's only 10 kilometers away, once we finish our expansion at the El Cubo plant, instead of shipping our Guanajuato concentrates 1,000 kilometers, we will ship them across the street. So another synergy in this deal. Let's talk about page 10, operational highlights. The seller, Orico, provided guidance, production guidance this year of about 2.5 million silver equivalent ounces. The first quarter's production was a little bit less than that, about 460,000 equivalent ounces. And so we're on track at El Cubo. For the year, the mine will do about 1.8 equivalent ounces. Now we don't take possession until the end of June, so we're only getting half a year. So you have to divide that in half. And on an actual silver basis, we may only get 600,000 or 700,000 ounces of silver and the balance in gold. But what that does is take our 4.3 million ounce silver forecast up to at least 4.8, possibly 5 million ounces. Orico had planned their own capital expansion program this year. It hasn't started yet. Endeavour is in the process of doing the detailed engineering before the June closing, so that after the June closing, we can bring out our detailed long-term growth plan to expand the El Cubo operation by at least double and possibly triple the current production. Why are we so enthusiastic on our ability to expand this operation? Not only have we enjoyed tremendous exploration success at Guanajuato, and we believe we can have similar discovery success at El Cubo, there is a significant reserve and resource base already drilled out by Orico, to the tune of 54 million ounces of silver and over 1 million ounces of gold, ready to go. Page 11. Our transaction, therefore, is very simple. This adds a third mine to our portfolio. It takes Endeavour from the junior tier of miners to the mid-tier of silver miners. It adds, in addition, a spectacular exploration project I haven't even mentioned. The transaction is actually two projects, the mine plus an exploration property called Guadalupe-Calvo. And that exploration project certainly has the potential to become mine number 4 in the group. This transaction is accretive on all measures but cash costs. What I mean by that is that if you look at the impact on production, we're basically paying about a quarter of our market cap in order to purchase reserves and resources. The reserves will more than double our reserves, and the resources will almost triple our resources. That's accretive. That's the definition of accretion. We are buying cheap ounces. The average price paid per ounce in the deal is $1.30 an ounce. And all of these ounces are adjacent to an operating mine. On the production basis, it'll be slightly diluted this year, but significantly accretive in future years as we expand the production. On a cash cost basis, it's also dilutive this year because with a smaller level of production, their costs are actually higher than ours. Our costs are about $5 or $6 per ounce. Their costs are approximately $12 per ounce. But as we increase the production, what happens? We enjoy economies of scale. That's why we've been able to enjoy falling costs all these years. As we do that at El Cubo, those El Cubo costs will come from 12 down to 0. And they come to 0 because we use the gold as a credit to pay for the cost to produce the silver. And last but not least, with 8,000 hectares at the El Cubo mine and 54,000 hectares at the Guadalupe-Calvo project, we are dramatically expanding by 6-fold our land holdings throughout Mexico. So last but not least, the transaction. It's actually a minimum maximum. Where on closing we pay $200 million cash, and over the next 3 years, depending on certain benchmarks, principally the gold price, we'll pay up to an additional $50 million. Because it's tied to the gold price, effectively the increased gold production at the mine will pay for the bonus payments. We have enough cash on hand to close this deal, but we also have the right to issue shares. We wanted that opportunity only because if the market gets weaker, we've already fixed, by the way, the price of the shares to be paid at $9.06. So if the price of the shares goes, for instance, to $8, then at closing, we'd be happy to give them $9 shares. Whereas if the stock goes to $10, we'd be happy to give them cash. But the choice is ours. The closing is in June. It's not subject to due diligence or financing. It's just a regular closing, subject only to the standard Mexican government review. So that's it. That's really what I wanted to review with you today. There are many more details in here on all three mines. You're welcome to read about those details. But the point I wanted to make for you today is simply that we are a growth company in the silver business. We have had 8 fantastic years of growth, and thanks to the Alcubo transaction, we can now forecast at least 3 more years of aggressive growth, and by then we will most certainly have mine number 4 and possibly mine number 5. Thank you very much.